Hello and welcome to Live from Currituck Extension. My name is Adam Fermella, the county's agriculture extension agent, and today I'm going to be presenting what the heck is Hypertufa. This content comes from Chris Blaha, our agriculture program assistant, and so if you have any questions along the way, make sure that you type them down in the chat and he'll be here to answer them. If you're watching this recorded, go ahead and shoot him an email if you have any questions, and you can find his email on our website. The link to that is in the description. Check out all of our links in the description. We've got a lot of resources there today for various topics on Hypertufa. We've also got our social media links there, and then we've got a link to our evaluation. We'd appreciate it if you'd fill those out. Also, make sure that you subscribe if you like our content and you want to see more of this stuff. So we're going to talk a little bit about what the heck is Hypertufa. It's a rock-like material that is cast. You can make them out of molds, and it's something that you can do at your home. It's a great activity to get outdoors and to get active and relieve a little bit of stress. It's a really inexpensive way to make things like flower pots and sculptures to pretty up your outdoor space, but you can also bring them inside and use them for indoor plants as well. And it's something, like I said, that's fun to do outside. It's really hands-on. It's creative. It's open for all ages. Really, anybody can do it as long as you can carry the bags. And it's something that's a little bit lighter than concrete, so it's not quite as heavy. So you don't have that restriction either. The biggest thing is that it's messy, so you want to make sure you have plenty of room to do it where you're near water so you can rinse things off, clean up afterwards, and leave your structure to sit for a little while. So we talked a little bit about Hypertufa, but the history of it is that this tufa rock is very common and was very popular among gardeners in England. They used it in things like watering troughs to decorate their gardens many years ago, but it started to become rare and kind of expensive. So gardeners, being creative, wanted to make their own tufa, and they made this substance up. It's really lightweight, and they called it Hypertufa. Hyper meaning more than, in the tufa being tufa rock, which is this volcanic rock that's really light and airy and pretty and can be smooth or rough textured. So that's a little bit of the history. Hypertufa is kind of like a form of concrete, which has been around for thousands and thousands of years. It's made up of things like lime and clay and has changed a little bit throughout time. The ancient civilizations of Egypt and China used it to make big structures like the pyramids and the Great Wall of China. The ancient Romans and Greeks used it to make their religious buildings, a lot of their bathhouses and their aqueducts and things like that. And then there was a period of about 1,000 to 1,500 years where concrete was kind of lost. It wasn't used a lot in those middle and dark ages. And it wasn't until the 1800s when it was kind of reinvented or reinvigorated in England where they started to make Portland cement. And that's something that we use today to make our Hypertufa. Now, when you're going to be making Hypertufa, it's important to be safe, and you'll want to be wearing personal protective equipment, or PPE for short. The things you'll need are gloves, a mask, and goggles. You'll want to wear nice rubber or latex gloves. That'll protect your skin because this cement can cause burns if it hardens on your skin. You'll want to wear a mask, and they recommend N95, which can be hard to come across these days. But you just want to make sure that you're not breathing in this dust because it's fine soils and fine rock material that can damage your lungs if you're exposed to it for long periods of time. And then you want to wear goggles as well because you don't want those tiny little rocks to get in your eyes. So PPE is very important for this, especially if you're working with kids. You want to make sure everybody's doing this safely. Now, the materials you'll need some sort of fiber, whether that is a coconut fiber or a peat moss that's really fine. You'll use that in the formulation. You'll use Portland cement. You don't want to use concrete because concrete has little rocks and stuff in it. So you want to make sure that you get a good Portland cement. And then you'll use perlite or vermiculite as well. And those are the three main ingredients. Other things you'll need is an area that's close to water because you'll be adding water to mix it all together. You'll need a container to hold it in, whether that's a bucket or a wheelbarrow that you'll do your mixing, a tool to mix, whether that's going to be a shovel or a spade or a trowel, something like that. And then you'll need some other things that might help make it a little bit cleaner, like plastic bags or little wooden things to place around so you're not making quite a mess. And then you'll need a mold to pour it in. And we'll talk about the different types of molds that you can use for your design in a few slides. But those are most of the materials that you might need to make your Hypertufa mix. Now the formulas can change depending on the different structures you use, but the general formula we use is 3 parts of your fiber, whether that's the peat moss or the coconut fiber, 2 parts of your cement mix, and then 3 parts of your perlite or vermiculite. And these are parts per volume. So think about it like a cup. You would put 3 cups of your fiber and 3 cups of your perlite, and then 2 cups of your cement. And that's the ratio that you're going to be looking for. You'll put it in a barrel or a bucket, and then you'll slowly add water to it. You want to make sure that you're adding your water second, and you're looking for a consistency that's something like cookie dough, where it's just starting to hold together. And that's the general formula for Hypertufa that we use. Depending on the different structure and how creative you want to be, they might be a little bit different, but this is a good formula for most flower pots and things like that. Then you're going to want to put it in the mold. And your molds can vary depending on how creative you are. You can put them in, like this bottom image there, they have 2 bowls, a larger one for the outer portion and then a smaller bowl for the inner portion, and that'll give you a nice flower pot shape. You can use cups, you can use rags. There's a lot of things. You can even use wood and make long planters if you want out of that. So really the possibilities are endless. Then you're going to put the mix into the mold, and you want to make sure that you're pushing it down. That way you get out all of the air, and that way it's a nice solid shape. So that's adding it to the mold. The molds can change depending on your creativity. From there, you're going to want to make sure you add drainage holes. And this is for your plants to make sure that the water doesn't sit in there. That'll really damage your roots if you have water pooling in your container. So you can use straws or sticks to poke holes through it all the way through, depending on how your mold is. You can also drill holes through it, and that'll work as well. And this is a good time to add feet to your mold as well, if you want your planter to have little feet so it's up off of whatever surface you're going to put it on. So that's an important step. And then you're going to remove the mold after about 24 hours. This allows it to harden just so it's sturdy enough to stay in place, but it's not too hard where it's going to be stuck to the mold really in a tough way. And you can add some plastic too if you've done one and maybe it's sticking to the mold too much. You can add some plastic bags or plastic wrap around it. That might help you as well. But you want to remove it from the mold, and then you're going to leave it out to cure. And this process takes a while. This is the hardening of your Hypertufa. So it's really rigid and sturdy over time. This can take anywhere between 2 weeks to a month. So make sure you find a spot that's shady, that's not going to get a bunch of rain, that's not going to be exposed to the weather, and just let it harden in, like I said, 2 to 4 months. But the important thing is that you're trying to be creative with these Hypertufa. So you can make a lot of sculptures once you get familiar with it. There's a lot of designs on YouTube and Pinterest where you can find all sorts of things for sculptures and different types of planters out there. I thought these are pretty cool that Chris found here. Another cool method is the draped cloth technique. And what you do for that is you take an old rag or a blanket and you cover it in the Hypertufa, the wet mix, and you let it dry. And then you get these cool, I don't want to say frilly, but they've got these cool designs for the flower pots. Now, if you want them to be perfectly round, what you would do is cut your blanket into the shape of a circle and then drape it over something like a bucket or a cloth or a stump or a post, something like that. And that way it'll be perfectly round all the way around for your draped cloth. I thought these are pretty cool to design as well. So really the creativity is endless for these. But one of the most important things is what do you do with it after? And there's a lot of plants that grow well in these. A lot of it depends on the size of your container. So if you make a very large Hypertufa that can contain a lot of soil, then you can put a bigger plant. But for the most part, these are fairly shallow. And so plants that grow well are things like sedum sod mats. And you can find these at a lot of box stores. But also there's a sort of cactus and succulents that work well. And so here's a couple pictures of some succulents. It's a nice look because the Hypertufa can be a rough, kind of ancient looking planter, and so the succulents and cactus look really well in that. You can also put them in hanging baskets, and so that's what the image there on the right is. And it's great because you can move them inside because they're not concrete, so they're a little bit lighter weight. And that's important with your succulents if you're going to be leaving them outside for the summer part of the year to bring them back in the fall. Herbs also grow really well. They're usually growing for a short portion of the summer. Their roots don't get particularly big, and they look nice. Again, they're kind of that rustic, ancient look that growing in stone looks like. So growing herbs is another great plant. And the last one are mini conifers, especially once your pots start to get bigger. These can be a great look for your outdoor space, whether it's in the garden or along some kind of flower bed, things like that. So those are the plants that grow really well, and that's really just an introduction to Hypertufa to kind of start to pique your interest in the material. Again, we've got a lot of links for different designs and different formulations depending on how comfortable you are, but we wanted you to get interested in this material. And so if you have any questions about this, go ahead and add them to the chat now, and Chris will be here to answer them. If you're watching this recorded, you can shoot him an email and check out all of our links in the description. But it doesn't look like we have any questions right now, and so that's all we have today live from Currituck Extension. Make sure that you tune in tomorrow at 11:30 for Miss Sheila Gregory's class on collard greens and preparing greens.